Hey ratbags, it's Jade. A good while ago I said that grounded was too hard, and a lot of people mocked me and kind of scoffed at the idea. They felt like there was a lot to help players, and I pointed out that so many achievements just weren't getting completed, or from the comments that I saw continually, people were really surprised by the late game activities because they simply weren't getting to it. Well, it looks like the devs of Grounded agreed. I mean, I'm not saying they actually figured that out just from my video. I'm sure they've known for a while that sometimes Grounded does get a bit lost in terms of telling you what to do. Don't get me wrong, it's 10 times better than any other survival game in directing you to places, but clearly they've got a younger audience that play this game, and so the changes in the 1.3 update have made Grounded a little bit easier. And not just easier, but just better overall experience, especially for younger players or more casual players. And I know that's a dirty word to the hardcore Grounded faithful, but let's face it, casual players make up a huge ton of interest in games like these. So making their lives a bit easier, making everything a little bit more directed, can't be a bad thing. There are some real big balance changes, and that's what this video is going to focus on. How Grounded's been made easier, listing off the patch notes, showing a few examples, and then hopefully I'll give you the full patch note rundown when the update's available for everyone. Remember, this is just PTB. Do leave a like, make sure you subscribed. I'm going to cover every way that Grounded's been made easier. Straight off the bat, missions and quests. But now there's even better guidance when you go to the daily quests outside one of the science stations. It now lists all of these different quests, and they go all the way up to level 99. You also get rewarded for each one of these that you complete. Everything from building an acorn turret to reaching certain coziness levels. You get the idea. It's going to guide you much easier and give you reasons to keep doing stuff. The raw science is a big plus. The devs did say they were going to introduce new ways to do it, and so now they have. So at the moment you can see it doesn't actually show what some of these are, the idea being that you'll find out as you complete the game. But if you press refill quests, it will pop up with the first 3, and then once you complete these it should pop up with the next 3. So my acorn shovel, I completed that quest, and then we go ahead and we kill a grub and dig one up, although admittedly not the best weapon to be doing this. And there we go, I've completed all 3 of them quests. Let's go and check on them. Then we simply press the refill quest button and it will now tell you the next 3. They will guide you pretty much through the game, all the way up to boss fights and more. So it's just another helpful way and tips of rewarding you but guiding you. The map has had massive changes too. No longer trying to find a billion different no longer spending years looking for milk molars. Well, you still have to find them, but you can now cross-reference them to make sure you've got all of them. They'll now ping up on the map when you found one. So as long as you know exactly how many there are, you'll be able to cross-reference it against other maps that have been made by communities on the wiki and discords or other creators' videos. Same thing goes for the scam flavors and possibly points of interest. One thing that's become a bit harder to get 100% of the game complete on your scorecard, you now need every single bug to be gold, otherwise you will not get 100%. The Waft emitter now rewards you properly with raw science every time you go ahead and complete a payback. So you do have to win to get the raw science, and you'll get pretty much every kill that you get, you'll earn some, with more harder enemies giving you more raw science. Mixers will now show and tell you exactly what you're going to be up against and the difficulty level of them. No more getting wrecked just for pressing a button. You'll have time to prepare, know what weapons to bring. Now we get into the mechanics that are not necessarily going to be showing you all in this one video, but basically medium mode has reduced all enemy damage by 10%. That's the game mode that I completed my 100% gameplay through, so they will hit you a little bit less harder. Pet's Invincible has now been enabled by default. Wish that was in from 100%, I wouldn't have lost my poor Spicy, my little weevil that died fighting Schmector. Player damage has been buffed. Now these values can change with feedback during the PTB, and they've already changed a couple times some of this stuff. So do bear in mind anything I say right now, it may be adjusted. Woe mode is where a lot of the changes have happened, but player damage has been buffed from 75% to 80%, building health has been buffed from 50% to 100%, item durability has been buffed from 75% to 100%, durability penalty on death from 10% to 30%. So that means when you die now, your items are going to take more of a hit, rewarding you for actually playing and getting good and not necessarily dying and just respawning. Creature health has been increased from 100% to 120. So they hit a little bit less harder, but they have got slightly more health now. Full damage multiplier increased from 100% to 120%, but you can now adjust that in custom modes. So again, not the base game, but just WoW mode, you can see a lot more attention has been given it. Consumables and smoothies have had some massive rewrites. Most consumables now have a 4-second cooldown. So you can see now, it's going down. You won't be able to use another consumable while you've got that active. Go ahead and use a bandage. You can see the smoothies I can't use, but I can go ahead and use a heal bassa. So no more everyone just making 100 smoothies for specially dedicated players and being able to take on bosses with kind of easiness, knowing they can just keep healing and healing. That cooldown's definitely going to change the way that boss fights happen and fights in combat in general. Meals also respect this new cooldown, but snacks will not. To make up for that, they have doubled the amount of health that you get from all healing items. Bandages also get a special little burst heal when you first use them, and have tripled how much health you get when using a bandage. They've also made it quicker how long it takes to use a bandage, so yes, they're going to become much more useful. It does look like Thorns damage overall has been improved. The meals Quisilda, Antlion and Omulant, the Thorn damage has been doubled on that, and definitely on some other weapons and stuff and mutations it's been increased. Back to smoothies and the basic actual smoothie. They will all heal you a little bit obviously. It's no longer questionable slop, instead it's called soothing syrup. Basically you can't make any random concoction of stuff anymore. It has to be actually from the list of ingredients. But again, all the smoothies have had their healing properties doubled, so we'll have to see how this plays out. Dandelions will now drop triple the amount they used to. Why? Because they're no longer an accessory. You can see you no longer have to equip it. If you jump from a height and then press jump, you'll fall down. But be warned, they are one-time use only. So you now have to have a small stack of them, or hopefully get lucky and get the Dandelion Tough Trinket, which will be a permanent item that can stop fall damage, obviously by floating down. Combat has changed. The first hit you would do 50% damage. The second hit in that combo you would do 100, and the third hit you would do 150. Making players have to be a bit more careful and be a bit more considered about getting that third hit in. But with fast moving creatures, that meant that you often were missing out on getting that combo, or maybe enemies were hitting you before being able to achieve it. So it's now been balanced. Your first hit and second hit will be 100%, and the third hit's going to be 125. So it's going to reward players for getting in, getting a couple hits. You won't necessarily feel like you're missing out on that third combo as much, since it's not going to do as much damage. All weapon damage has been adjusted with this. They've also increased charge attacks for every single weapon. They've long been kind of useless. Weapons and armor and perks geared towards it just haven't been worth it. They've also added the ability for every player to get a critical hit chance. So this will be a random effect, and obviously you'll be able to increase this with other items. As I said, all Thorns damage has now been increased. They've also increased the base damage of all turret ammo types. Two-handed swords and axes have both had their animation time sped up, and it's a massive difference. Hopefully now making the katana something worthwhile using once again. Clubs have also had their animation sped up too. In fact, the swords and axes have both got new animations. The club has definitely just sped up. And in first person, the movement of the club has been reduced, so you won't be hopefully missing as many shots. They've changed the way that you run. If suddenly your parkour skills have deserted you, don't panic, it's actually a brand new thing they've added. By default, you'll always be running, so you'll always be using your stamina. You now have to left click in using the controller to go ahead and walk mode. You can change this in the game settings. Now, when it comes to bosses and creatures, they're going to take separate smaller videos, but effectively Black Widow has made a bit easier now. She's now got a weakness to sour, but is still resistant to all the other types. She'll be neutral to all other damage types, but is no longer immune to poison damage. It does have 2 new attacks, and it can shoot a new ranged web at a player which spawns a Black Widowling, and it can also eat its own little Black Widowling to give itself an increase in attack speed. That's pretty significant, as one of the toughest creatures in the game. Making this a bit easier is absolutely what I'm seeing there. We'll have to see how them new animations play into that and whether or not it's still a challenge. They've updated animations for larvae, reduced damage for Ruz-Ts. Ruz-Ts now have weakness to smashing. Stun cooldowns by bosses has now been reduced, so that should mean you'll be able to stun them more regularly. When it comes to defending your base, a lot has changed with this. Again, something I'll cover in a more separate video, but effectively they've changed the spawn rates, they've added new options for raids to happen, and you can even get things like the Termite King spawning in a termite raid. You'll also get stink bugs, roly-polies, ladybugs, ominent, moth and black widow attacks now. It doesn't look like they've adjusted the pathfinding. It's still very easy to find places to build, but pretty much you'll rarely ever get attacked at your base because they simply just can't get to it. When it comes to the infected broodmother, you'll be pleased to know that the drop rates for it have increased. So mutations, a bunch of these have been changed as well. Sour Sensation is 6 times more powerful at reflecting damage back at enemies now. Parry Master is going to give you more stamina every time you parry. And Spore Lord has had a huge amount of changes. Quadruple the chance for damage on effect, double the chance for heal over time and speed up effect to proc. And added a stack cap to 50 to all buffs provided by Spore Lord. There's also a brand new Apex Predator effect for the Blast of the Mouldy Matriarch. Sharpshooter has changed. You'll get a critical chance with bows and crossbows now instead of reducing sprint stamina. And Chopper, the actual defense down proc duration has been reduced. And Javelineer, the Thorns damage on it has also been doubled. Apparently throwing stuff has slightly changed now in third person. I'm not going to lie, I kind of find it hard to tell. And there is now a new small change to milk molars. You'll find one in the Hedge and it's going to be uncracked. This is something again that I've long campaigned for, but you don't really get to understand about the milk molars or what they can really offer and do until you're well into the game perhaps. You might even bypass and miss it out. Not forever, but certainly a lot longer. So they've removed one of the milk molars in the Minotaur maze chest, and now there's going to be one that you can just get inside the Hedge. Speaking of the Hedge, you can see now it's a little bit more obvious that maybe you should be going up here. I've added this brand new pair of garden cutters, and there's more lights as well. So yeah, pretty interesting they went to the bother of doing even this. It definitely feels like there's a lot more branches, but maybe that's just because it's lit up a bit nicer now. You don't necessarily realise that the entrance to the actual laboratory you're meant to get into is quite a distance away. So any way to make it a bit easier to understand where that is, that's obviously got to make sense. They've added some new respawn points as well in the Hedge lab, and this follows up on what I said, that so many people had barely even completed the Hedge lab because maybe they weren't being guided to it enough, or just quit playing because they felt the game was too hard. I know for sure so many people play custom mode, and there is that element, but like I said, based on a lot of the comments and the popularity of just so many guides, it definitely showed to me that players were struggling. Now here is the cracked milk molar. I kind of feel like they should make a bunch more of them actually cracked, so you can get some, especially the ones that you do find close to the original spawn or the oak tree. With them changes also with the Hedge, a lot of the spiders won't be running around the branches as much anymore, instead they are going to be in all the different laboratories. So you're always guaranteed to get an acorn top now whenever you bash one. Small feather nodes will always give you 2 feathers. And then mixers do give you more raw science now as a reward in general. So the pond lab has changed as well. Again, I'm going to show this in a separate video. But it looks like some minor changes to help with better loot, but also stopping people from exploring every part of it, that you might have to return more with the assistant manager keycard. So combat and upgrades is probably one of the biggest changes. For a long time now, if you didn't know or realise, going up the mighty path has always pretty much resulted in the weapon being better than anything else. Data miners have long said and shown and proven that despite certain weapons saying they're going to be super strong with different elemental damage types, it has still always been better in terms of the amount of enemies and general attack, that mighty was often still the better path. But that's been changed. The idea behind it is that mighty should really be for casual players that don't really want to min-max as much. That they're not necessarily going to be bothered about always having the most optimized weapon to take on that specific enemy. If you're a casual player, the mighty path will still be the better way to go, but if you really want to be a bit of a pro grounded, you'll have to put more attention now to the actual elemental types and what they do and how you take on enemies. Elemental type damage will now go ahead and give exactly the same amount of damage as Mighty Path, instead of taking it away, which was something that would happen. Some of the special weapons, including the Battle Sail, Battle Axe, the Cortana, the Mint Mace and Salty Morningstar, they all have special combo finishers once you get it up to level 6. You can see now it opens up the combo finisher parry, meaning that these weapons will become worth upgrading to their max. You can see it's a quest item as well, so they really want people to understand that you can get some bonuses for these special elemental weapons. There's a bunch of improvements for other weapons as well, but I'm going to go through this actually showcasing it better. But Pinchwhacker and Prod Smacker have both been improved. When it comes to armors, the Mother Demon and Moldy Matriarch armor sets have been improved, but they are now both heavy armor. Black Ant armor set bonus has had the Thorns damage doubled, and there's some differences with shields now. So tier 3 shields are going to have more block strength, and to maybe encourage people to use other weapons, you'll now do slightly less damage when you've got a shield equipped. I'm not too sure how that one's going to go down with people, but again we'll have to see how it balances. There are just a ton of improvements and changes to so many of the armor sets. Again, I'm going to go through that in a separate video, but Acorn, Grub, Clover have all been improved or changed. The Black Widow armor set has been changed as well. Aphid Slippers also now changed from Sprint Stamina to Aphid Kid. I'm pretty sure that means that the Aphids don't run away from you if you've got that now. All club weapons are going to do damage at 15% faster, and your Widow Dagger will now do venom damage instead of poison. Huge change that I'm so happy for. And again, I feel like the devs have been watching my 100 days playthrough, I swear. I lost my tier 9 fresh spear in the undershed, forgot about it, come back a few days later and it was gone. Now crafted items will not disappear. Some changes to some of the trinkets, including the Was Queen, the Fancy Fletching and the Broodmother Infected Broodmother trinkets. But again, I'm going to go over that in a separate video, as there are some also new trinkets being added. It's probably worth pointing them out at least, but these should be there by default once you pick up any of the items that you would use to craft them. They'll be on top of the armor section. Nifty Needle, give you more shot damage. Sturdy Shell, help you take less damage from friends and make you a major threat, and get extra combo finisher damage. Some new ones also added in the world, I do believe, or at least in creative mode too. All the Omnant badges have had changes as well. Majority of them have had increases to their positives, but also some increases or changes to the negatives. And probably the biggest one, whetstone costs for Mighty Globs and Jewels has been lowered. This has always been a bit of a weird block, and again I swear I was given some criticism in Discord for this. I should have maybe read the patch notes. By the time you get to crafting Supreme, yes, it's still a grind getting Black Ox horns and maybe Ladybird shells, but you also work out what weapons you enjoy and like by then. The problem is, to get to their middle phases, to level 6 and 7, it's really tough because you need so many of the Supreme Whetstones to make all the globs and the jewels. So definitely reducing the cost of them should mean no more just boring grind killing nothing but wolf spiders. Or at least if you do, you're going to get more out of it now. And I think that's about it. That is a substantial amount of changes. I think people might question why so late into the game. Grounded is not maybe a live service game, but the devs are obviously keen. I've said multiple times now, they're going to carry on working and adding more updates. I'm sure we're going to get a more survival focused update in the future, as well as stuff added to the playgrounds. So these balance changes I hope are going to go down well. They might not get it right with every single one of them, but I'm just glad they are attempting. Grounded isn't a badly balanced game at all, but these minor little tweaks and improvements will encourage more casuals to play, and that means good things for overall the Grounded game and community. Hardcore players, I definitely want to hear your opinions, especially with the WoW mode. I'm actually thinking now I will start a fresh brand new playthrough on WoW mode. As said, I'll be here with more details about all the other smaller changes, but for now, that's pretty much how Grounded has become a lot easier and better balance. Until next time, ratbags, laters.